Rule 11. Do not bother children when they are skateboarding. Welcome back and happy Tuesday, turkeys. How long have we known each other?
We've known each other for 2 decades.
I am not apologizing for who I am or what I like or the people that I love.
How do I be a wife? How do I be a mom? And how do I be myself and all of that? You didn't see that coming, did you?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday, turkey tots.
I realized as I was touching my headphones, I forgot to put earrings in.
Oh no, I never wear earrings with my headphones.
Okay. Well, we're back. It's chapter 11. We're winding down.
We've made it so far. We only have this chapter and next chapter.
Oh, and then an epilogue and wrap up.
Yes. It's been good so far. I can't wait to hear your summary of this chapter, because where will you go with it?
Well, this chapter, let's read the rule. Because back when we did our projections of guessing what the rules were going to be about and the chapters, we were grossly wrong on this one.
Sorely mistaken, yeah.
Rule 11. Do not bother children when they are skateboarding.
At least
it sounded so lowbrow, and it was not.
I'm glad you warned me, because you had read the chapter before I started listening to it. And I was trying to go into it but with a very open mind. Because sometimes I get annoyed with the fact that we're not staying on the topic of the exact sentence of the chapter, which is my fault. So I actually really enjoyed this. And I enjoyed what he was saying and everything he went into. I just kept reminding myself, it's going to be okay, because it's not going to match up with the chapter exactly until probably the last 5 minutes.
Yep. Yeah. He started off with the children skateboarding as an example, and then it as he does, it all comes back around, but we took some journeys through Marxism and postmodern philosophy and some historical references that were really heavy. And I also enjoyed it, but I remember being it was also a long chapter. And when I was reading this in the middle of it, I remember feeling a little bit cross-eyed that I was not absorbing the information, or it wasn't capturing my attention, which is my own problem. But
I think this was the longest chapter. At least
might have been.
Because when I looked it up, it said 1 hour and 57 minutes to listen, and that's a long chapter.
Okay, well that makes me feel better.
Yeah,
because I remember, you know how you do, you flip ahead to see how many pages are left.
Yeah, you're like, oh crap.
There were so many times where I thought, I am not even halfway through this chapter.
But look, he made it, and it was great in its own way.
We're surviving. No, it was a good chapter. All of them are good chapters. It's just sometimes it's a lot to try to condense into a summary, and this was one of the challenging ones. Okay, so this chapter begins with an anecdote of children skateboarding on the concrete structures and planters outside of a university. Dr. Peterson describes his admiration of the kids testing their limits, falling down, getting up again, and noted how much he genuinely enjoyed watching them have fun. The university eventually put up metal studs and other fixtures to prevent the skateboarders from scuffing up the concrete. We are left to consider the motivation and stifling antics of the children. Was the faculty administration jealous of their fun? Were they protecting them, quote, for their own good? Or was this an attempt to level the playing field? If I can't skateboard because I'm not physically or mentally fit enough to do so, then no one should. The chapter highlights numerous examples of power structures, hierarchies, and their roles in the struggles we face in life. We are challenged to consider that an issue such as income inequality might in fact be a very complicated and very layered topic to discuss. We are prompted to look into the systems that have tried to force equality through tyranny and their failures. Dr. Peterson contends that we must take care of each other, and it is not beneficial to society to let the less fortunate waste and wither away, but he questions what the best solution to this problem might be. Overall, we read that tearing each other down to bring everyone to the bottom is not the best plan for individuals. We are encouraged to encourage each other to be bold and brave like the skateboarders and not to squelch someone else's progress merely because we are happy with our own lack of success.
That's a good way to put it all together. I like that.
This was a challenge, Dr. P. This was a challenge. I feel like I'm doing my own version of Peterson Academy. Am I trying to summarize these chapters?
It's interesting because we we went so far in a different direction. Like the chapter could have been titled like socialism in modern ideologies, and I would have been like, yeah, that makes sense.
So true. I guess I like that he makes these rules as accessible sentences.
Yes. And I also think it helps people take the first bite and then they realize what's in my mouth, and then it's like, okay, let's process this together. But I do like that it's not just, let your kids skateboard because, overprotective parents are going to stifle their freedom, creativity, and confidence. Okay, like that's the first layer. But then he goes into not only does it affect the family culture and parents with their kids, but if you also broaden it out onto like society in a whole, also stripping away things for the sake of safety, maybe, or security, actually does more harm than good historically from his references that he made. So I thought it was interesting.
It was. I also am going to get corrected from someone about the
Oh,
difference
yeah.
in the definition between equality and equity, and I honestly can't remember which one is. I think equality is more referring to equal opportunity, and equity is referring to equal outcome.
That
I
sounds right to
think that's
me,
how it goes.
but someone
So
in
I
YouTube
probably
will
should
probably
have
say something.
talked about. I probably should have used the word equity in my summary. It's fine. Which I like the distinction between the two because for sure equal opportunity should be available to everybody, but equal outcome is kind of impossible to manage because some people are going to put in less effort than others and some people are going to be better at some things than others. Thus going back to the skateboarding.
Yeah. Yeah, he was like, I wouldn't skateboard, but I love that they're skateboarding.
Which even just that sentiment is a really good reminder for myself and others. Just because you don't like something or you can't do something doesn't mean you should take a giant shit on the people who can. And it's a good reminder, to question yourself if you feel irritation towards someone that's doing something well, to check yourself. Are you just being a jealous little bee?
And I think staying on the parent thing for a second before we dive into all the other things. He again, chaos versus order, masculine versus feminine. He always comes back to those topics or themes. And it was interesting because masculinity is needed. I mean, we all have a little bit of it in us or a lot. And just doing the things like skateboarding or taking risks or letting your kids, he was like, even the safest playground, they're going to find a way to make it challenging and a little unsafe because that's what you do, and that's how you grow, and that's how you're challenged. But especially as a boy mom, specifically if you take it in that direction, it's like, yeah, like I cannot be a helicopter mom because it's like he may get hurt every once in a while, but if he doesn't, what's the alternative? It's going to be worse if I'm always trying to protect him from things and he's not going to know discomfort. He's not going to know how to deal with it. It goes back to, once he's in society, it's going to be a lot harder. I don't know.
You can even brush that out to managers and corporate settings if there's not some risk allowed or like creative risk allowed by employees, then there's really never going to be growth in the company. And if you try to make everybody completely standardized and you don't leave room for discussion of process improvements, then you get really bureaucratic and weighed down in the muck.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I don't know if I have a quote that captures this. He went on a weave about masculine versus feminine energies and how they're represented, which I really liked because he was talking about the daring and the call to adventure and all of that is represented by a male figure in traditional literature. I really liked how he kind of parsed apart. I'm not saying only men do this. I'm just saying this is represented as masculine energy throughout historical cultures and frameworks. the call to adventure and the call to risk taking and being courageous. I really enjoyed that because he even used like fucking Sleeping Beauty, was it?
Yes. That was
When
just
he talked about, the prince rescuing her, he goes, that's an archetype of her being woken up by the call to adventure.
yep.
If you look at it that way, instead of it being that you're just a lady that's sleeping, waiting for a guy to come
Yes.
rescue you.
I really liked that part because he was like, yes, a man could save you, but also if the female just taps into the masculine energy of consciousness, then that could save her as well. I'm sorry. Um,
Oh, you're good.
so it's like you don't need a man, but also there's still masculine energy that you have that will help you. So it kind of still goes back to the masculine, whether it's actually just in you or in a physical person.
I think I liked also the way he distinguished masculine energy doesn't mean a male person with a wiener.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
It's just the balance of safety and security versus courage and adventure, or gentleness and soft nurturing versus tough love shoving you out of the nest. I just, it was a cool distinction for me because I still get prickly about stuff. Like I can do it myself. But we all need to have that. Some of us just innately have more than others. And it was just, it was just so nice for everyone that thinks people are being sexist. I don't know. It was just a cool example. I
I
very
agree.
much enjoyed it.
I did too. Um, I don't know how far you'll get into it and what will go next, but yeah, everything historically. And then he referenced George Orwell, and that was cool. I don't know if you're going to talk about that at all, but I'm actually reading 1984 right now. So he referenced his other books, but I was like, oh, this is funny because I've been wanting to read it for a long time and it's been sitting on my bookshelf. And I'm like, I'm going to read 1984. This was like a month ago.
Oh,
Not even.
did you ever read it in school?
No, I don't remember reading it at school. Did we?
I did. I don't know. We weren't
Where
always
was
in the same
I?
classes.
Well, you would think. My mom and Kenny had to read it, but I don't remember it at all.
I loved it.
I'm loving it now. So it's just interesting because it's very parallel to this chapter.
Fun one for you when you're done with that.
Oh, okay.
It's shorter and easier. Ugh, I can't remember the name of it right now, and if I say it out loud, people will roll their eyes.
Okay, I love it.
God dang it. Yeah, okay, it's fine. We'll find it later. Side tangent. Okay. Quote number 1. Oh, it's referencing Orwell.
Oh, perfect.
I don't know what book. Okay, this is referencing Orwell's book, The Road to Wigan Pier. Whatever. In the book's second half, however, Orwell turns his gaze to a different problem, the comparative unpopularity of socialism in the UK at the time, despite the clear and painful inequity observable everywhere. He concluded that the tweed-wearing, armchair philosophizing, victim-identifying, pity and contempt dispensing, social reformer types frequently did not like the poor as they claimed. Instead, they just hated the rich. They disguised their resentment and jealousy with piety, sanctimony, and self-righteousness. Things in the unconscious or on the social justice dispensing leftist front haven't changed much today. It is because of Freud, Jung, Nietzsche, and Orwell that I always wonder, what then do you stand against? The question I hear someone say too loudly. Oops. What? Whenever. God, sorry, let me go back. What then do you stand against? Whenever I hear someone say too loudly, I stand for this, the question seems particularly relevant. If the same someone is complaining, criticizing, or trying to change someone else's behavior. That little shift was really interesting. Like, do you love the poor or are you masking?
Mm-hmm.
Because you really just don't like rich people, which again, are you trying to keep the skateboarder safe or are you just mad that they're having fun because you're miserable?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just have a lot of thoughts and I'm trying to be a little careful with how I say them. So carry on. I'll chime in later.
Okay, here's our next quote. If the consequences of placing skate toppers on plant boxes and sculpture bases, for example, is unhappy adolescent males and brutalist aesthetic disregard of beauty, then perhaps that was the aim. When someone claims to be acting from the highest principles for the good of others, there is no reason to assume that the person's motives are genuine. People motivated to make things better usually aren't concerned with changing other people, or if they are, they take responsibility for making the same changes to themselves and first. Beneath the production of rules stopping the skateboarders from doing highly skilled, courageous, and dangerous things, I see the operation of an insidious and profoundly anti-human spirit.
Oh, that's a good one. I forgot about that little section.
I need to do a, what's a jabber? Tongue twister? Before I actually
start reading this.
Yeah, start reading this, because god damn, there's some big words.
Yes. It's I don't mean to jump ahead, but it just reminds me of his friend that he references, that it almost goes back to being untethered a little bit.
Yeah.
He was so angry with the world because it didn't seem fair. It's kind of how I took it. And he just went down a dark path. And again, he got very emotional when he read that section, of course. Like, it ends up very sad for this man. But I also thought it was interesting, and this is a completely side tangent, that he talks about the smell of his clothes and like almost the evil that's on it. Is that a thing?
Well, I can smell a sex offender in a lineup. I mean, I can tell you who they are, what they are. I mean, I've encountered them on numerous occasions. And I tested this one time because I had a person charged with that in my office, and something was just weird, and the smell was there. So I went on the state registry and found them, and sure enough, they were such
That's
an individual.
crazy. Is
Really
it like
weird.
the energy? And he was like he's never been battling so hormonally or energetically. It's just off.
I have no idea. Also, I'm talking about, like, for the record, I'm talking about child predators for anyone listening. But yeah, there's an identifiable smell. Now,
That's
is
crazy.
some of that related to probably more of the reek of depression and soul rot, and also not washing your clothing or bed sheets?
I like soul rot. That's a good way to put it.
But there's something, and I'm not saying it's just that population, but
Yeah.
I think when you're talking about depression and a lot of layers of a lot of stuff going wrong, that's probably a pretty hefty group.
Crazy. I'm sorry I derailed us, but that was the part where I was like, but it makes sense. And me and my woo-woo stuff, I'm like, energetically, yeah, they probably do. Their aura's off and their smell's off.
Yeah,
I
it's
thought
so
that part was
funny.
crazy because he like basically they all had a feeling in the house that night, and he goes in and talks to him. What could have happened? Anyway, sorry.
No, it was funny. It was funny when he said that. I was like, oh, I know that smell. I haven't been around people, okay, very troubled youth or very troubled adult. The most troubled group of people were the people charged with those offenses with that particular history. So I
Right.
think that's why I've experienced it there in such a concentrated form. But yeah,
Crazy.
so interesting that he said that, because I was like, I know the smell. I'm grossly familiar with it.
So weird. Okay, keep going. I just want to get your take on that part.
Yeah, so interesting. Okay. It's funny that you brought that up. Okay. I have seen university students, particularly those in the humanities, suffer genuine declines in their mental health from being philosophically berated by such defenders of the planet for their existence as members of the human species. It's worse, I think, for young men. As privileged beneficiaries of the patriarchy, their accomplishments are considered unearned. As possible adherents of rape culture, they're sexually suspect. Their ambitions make them plunderers of the planet. They're not welcome. At the junior high, high school, and university level, they're falling behind educationally. When my son was 14, we discussed his grades. He was doing very well, he said, matter-of-factly, for a boy. I inquired further. Everyone knew, he said, that girls do better in school than boys. His intonation indicated surprise at my ignorance of something so self-evident. While writing this, I received the last edition of The Economist. The cover story, the weaker sex, meaning males. In modern universities, women now make up more than 50% of the students in more than two-thirds of all disciplines. So that's so interesting.
It is interesting. I feel like I've heard not that exact stat, but in reference to the, I don't want to say unequal, but yeah, I mean, it's like there's more women in schools in certain majors or lines of work, which it does make sense in some circumstances, but it is weird how, I don't know, I feel like there's this unspoken thing of males being, I don't know how you feel about this. People get so hard, people go so hard at them that it's just like, it's causing a negative effect in some circumstances.
I think there's definitely an overcorrection. It's it's interesting. I don't want to talk for Jason, so I need to be careful, but it was interesting when I worked in law enforcement that I was in a very male dominated field as a female and he was in a very female dominated field as a male, and we were both experiencing how annoying it was for each of us in our own ways. But it was a good check for me because again, it can be both. You can have some, and he'll acknowledge that to his credit too. He was always very good at recognizing with certain male physicians when they would come to a room, he probably started off with a little bit more credibility or didn't have to put up with some of the bullshit with some of those aspects. But then there were definitely times where he was like, I feel ostracized because I'm not relating to the other women in the workplace in the way that women are relating to each other. Even just about stupid shit, talking about the bachelorette, he's like, I don't care. Like, I'm going to just go take care of the patient. So there were things like that where then he's like, well, now everyone thinks I'm an asshole because I'm not chit chatting, but I don't really want to chit chat. And the stuff they're talking about is not really the stuff that I want to talk about. And it was just interesting. All of that was just very interesting. And I could see, because he's a really kind person and wants to do well and wants to take care of people, his presentation looks different than some of his female, colleagues. And he's got a lot of masculine energy and used to rub people the wrong way. And then it would be sad because he would feel discouraged because even though he was operating at a high level and doing a good job with good intentions, it felt like a no-win situation for him, which I can see that like spread across in other areas where we've maybe overcorrected a little bit and it's not nice. But it was funny because meanwhile, I'm like, I'm a foot shorter than half the people that I'm talking to, and I'm not as strong as they are, and I don't know. And I don't know if it's easier for women to jump into the boys' club. I mean, I've talked about this before, but I started there, and there was definitely a group of guys that were all comfortable with each other that would all hang out and do stuff and joke around, and they were freaked out by me, half because I was a social worker in a law enforcement field, and I don't know if it was half because I was a woman and not married at the time, and whatever. But I just remember one day being like, well, fuck you, I want to have fun and joke around.
Yeah.
So I just decided we were going out to lunch, and I invited them. So they could not invite me. I organized it. And so I just manipulated the system. And then once I, dropped a few F-bombs and laughed at their, dick jokes, everyone was fine. But they, I don't know. I don't know if there's just like preconceived notions and barriers. Maybe some of their hesitation to engage with me was still because of this overcorrection, because they were worried that they were going to offend me or trying to walk on eggshells. I don't know. All of it's very interesting, but the more I have friends that have boys, the more interesting it is to kind of hear, like, what do you do? Because you don't want to raise an asshole, but there have been some areas where we probably have overcorrected where guys feel like they just can't be themselves.
Exactly. I know. This is like the story of my life. Going back to work, we have a lot of, we communicate and work with a lot of guys in construction. And it's always when you first meet them or you first trying to get to know them, they're like, I'm not a rugged man. Like, or whatever they're thinking, it's like, I can't say any swear words. And then they'll accidentally drop one and they're like, I'm so sorry. I'm like, I don't give a fuck. And then we finally break the ice. I'm like, I'm fine. Like, you don't have to pretend to be whatever box you think
Mm-hmm.
is more presentable. But going back to boys, yeah, I mean, the story of my life. Where's the fine line of raising a responsible, confident man who can be assertive? I don't want to use aggressive, but assertive, and also
Mm-hmm.
allowing them to have emotions and work through those and not suppress them. It's like, oh my God.
Mm-hmm. And I love looking at everything as a pendulum where the pendulum swings too far to one side, but it clears out space for things that we needed in society. So it helps me not freak out about the extremes back and forth. And we needed to make some room because it's
Mm-hmm.
not okay for men's only acceptable emotion to be anger. And
Correct.
dads need to be nurturing
Mm-hmm.
and love their kids and not be afraid of people thinking that they're weak. I mean, just a lot of those things are so important, but it's just hard. It's complicated, which
Yeah.
getting back to what old JP is saying, stuff's layered. It's not that black and white and it's not that simple. But people have to have the conversations and acknowledge maybe we don't always get it right so that we can keep improving.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And which is why we need to learn from history, because something may sound good, like, let's make sure everyone makes the same amount of money. And in reality, that always ends up in misery and death, to be dramatic about it. But
Hmm.
it's kind of true.
Yeah. No, it is. Okay. Girls can win by winning in their own hierarchy, by being good at what girls value as girls. They can add to this victory by winning in the boys' hierarchy. Boys, however, can only win by winning in the male hierarchy. They will lose status among girls and boys by being good at what girls value. It costs them in reputation among the boys and in attractiveness among the girls. Girls aren't attracted to boys who are their friends, even though they might like them, whatever that means. They are attracted to boys who win status contests with other boys. If you're a male, however, you just can't hammer a female as hard as you would a male. Boys can't and won't play truly competitive games with girls. It isn't clear how they can win. As the game turns into a girls' game, therefore the boys leave. Are the universities, particularly the humanities, about to become a girls' game, and is this what we want?
This was a really interesting part, because all of this totally tracks. And it's like, boys have. He was saying, like, if a girl, if you're in a situation where, like, a girl and you are fighting, like physically fighting, even if you dare to think about fighting her, you're a dick. But if you guys fight and she whoops your ass, then you're, like, so embarrassed for life. So, like, there's no win-win situation. But the other ironic thing is that, how do I say this? In today's world, we are experiencing men in women's things, and it's feeling like some people actually like that, and other people are not loving this fact. And I have an opinion when it comes to sports, but I'm gonna keep that to myself. You can probably read between the lines, but it's just very interesting, like the dynamics of female and male, and how they're,
Mm-hmm.
like, separate but intertwining, and it's weird right now. And do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's funny because it reminds me of, it goes back to the stupid fucking lobsters.
Yeah.
But there is something biological in us as women of being biologically attracted to men that do well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what we define as well, there's huge variations in that. So if you're an artsy person, maybe you like the dude that's really good at art, or you like the guy that's really does great in theater class. I mean, there's differences in that. I don't think anyone's saying that we all want to be with the sportiest dude, but there you still there's still that intrinsic, I need someone that's got their shit together
Mm-hmm.
in some realm. And it makes sense when he talks about the biology of, if on a biological level as a woman, your brain has ancient parts that are worried about procreation
Yep.
and how vulnerable you are as a pregnant woman,
Mm-hmm.
and then how vulnerable your children are when you have them, that you need to have some kind of reliability and stability in a partner. And
Mm-hmm.
when he breaks it down like that, Because for the longest time, I was like, I thought I was fairly progressive as a woman. And then I would be like, but that guy seems like a dweeb and it's repulsive sexually.
Well, I
I
think
was
there's
like, I can't turn it off. It's just, I remember numerous occasions where I felt like the dude that I was dating, I could walk all over him. And I was like, I just don't ever touch me again. They were
I
fine as people or friends,
yeah.
but again, I think I'm maybe a slightly aggressive female, so I just needed to be with a more so aggressive than me male or something.
Well,
But
he does say like wherever you're at, you know, the female, you kind of looking for at least equal or above. And I think there's a fine line between, you know, all over TikTok and Instagram. It's like, well, I want a guy who's 7 feet tall and makes six figures in 1 month. And I'm like, well, that's unrealistic and really kind of shitty because there's really good people out there that don't fit that category that you're just completely whatever ignoring. But I do feel
right.
like intrinsically, ancestrally, we have a need to make sure that we'll be protected and safe, especially when we have children. And it's very interesting how he put it.
And that there's part, it was for me, it was interesting seeing the biology and the evolutionary effects of this and realizing that there's just sort of parts of my brain that are ancient that are still there in some form or the other. And I found it so hilarious.
Yeah.
And part of it too is, again, not being more quote unquote successful as in making more money, but it's just, I need someone that challenges me mentally and isn't just going to be a dough ball. I have one example and then I'll shut up and read some more quotes because this is getting long. But I will never forget one time I was traveling somewhere with the dude that I was dating, and we hadn't been dating that long. And I was still in the phase of life of thinking, like, I need to be compliant and nice. And, you know, like, if I need to make things work and it's on me to be a nice lady. And we were driving, he was driving, and I was in the passenger seat. And he was like fiddling around in the back trying to get something out of the back seat. I remember this so vividly, and I remember next to nothing else about this guy or this relationship. But he was fiddling around in the back seat, and I was like, could you just not do that while you're driving? Because, you know, as he's looking back, the cars,
Yeah.
so butthurt. He got so butthurt. And I remember sitting there thinking, if I can't make a, like, one-off sarcastic comment to you, this is not just so sensitive. But for a woman that was more sensitive and less mean than me, that would be a good fit. Like, he could be the protector for someone else, but I was just like, oh my God. And then I also remember he would want to open the door for me in the car, and I'm like, I am not going to sit here and wait for you to walk around the vehicle to let me in. And if we're approaching the car and you open the door, that's cool. That's nice. Thank you. I'll get in. What am I just gonna sit here like, duh, okay? Like, you gonna fucking put the childproof locks on? I'm not doing that.
I tried.
Oh my God, he used to get so butthurt. Last thing, God, this is when I like got into feminist literature because I had to swing myself to the other direction and quit apologizing so that I could be with someone that wasn't a mama's boy. I will never forget one time we were out at a bar and I ordered a beer and he ordered a pina colada and he was like, "You drink beer? I hate beer." And I was like, this is never gonna work.
It's over.
That's just gross to me. And other women would love that they both liked the same fruity drink, not this one.
That's
and
funny.
it took me a long time to stop apologizing for what I found attractive and what I found gross. Okay. It's fine. He
Hey.
doesn't watch this, probably. Okay. A single sentence quote. Beware of single cause interpretations and beware of the people who purvey them. That is such a good one. This is my peeve of life. There's so much gray area. I'm getting into a real ranty headspace. Okay. Let me just buzz through these real quick. You must also know clearly what you want out of the situation and be prepared to clearly articulate your desire. It's a good idea to tell the person you are confronting exactly what you would like them to do instead of what they have done or are currently doing. You might think if they loved me, they would know what to do. That's the voice of resentment. Assume ignorance before malevolence.
Yes.
I'm
Me
going to
too.
read it again.
Okay.
Exactly what you want, you might find that it is more difficult than you think. A little more. Agreeable, compassionate, empathic, conflict averse people, all those traits grouped together, let people walk on them. And they get bitter. They sacrifice themselves for others, sometimes excessively, and cannot comprehend why that is not reciprocated. Agreeable people are compliant, and this robs them of their independence. The danger associated with this can be amplified by high trait neuroticism. Agreeable people will go along with whoever makes a suggestion instead of insisting, at least sometimes, on their own way. So they lose their way and become indecisive and too easily swayed. If they are, in addition, easily frightened and hurt, they have even less reason to strike out on their own, as doing so exposes them to threat and danger, at least in the short term. That's the pathway to dependent personality disorder, technically speaking. It might be regarded as the polar opposite of antisocial personality disorder, the set of traits characteristic of delinquency in childhood and adolescence and criminality in adult. It would be lovely if the opposite of a criminal was a saint, but it's not the case. The opposite of a criminal is an Oedipal mother, which is its own type of criminal.
Yep. That reminds me of, well, I'll tell you offline.
I have just specific flashes in my brain. I mean, I work in a helping profession, so it draws people who want to help people and who are genuinely good people and have good motives, but if they don't do their own work, they get in their own way.
Exactly.
Which also very much me. So I'm not speaking at people.
Right.
I mean, had I not gone to therapy? And there's certain aspects of social work that I'm just not touching because I'm like, you know what? That is a whole big can of worms for me. And it's just a minefield of triggers. And I don't know that I could ever professionally separate enough to be able to do that without getting overly involved, which is okay. Another great one-liner. Too much protection devastates the developing soul.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Oh, this is so fun. This is under the heading Toughen Up You Weasel. And he's talking about just workplace cajoling. Okay. When a new guy first showed up, the other workers would inevitably provide him with an insulting nickname. They called me Howdy Doody after I accepted as a crew member, something I am still slightly embarrassed to admit. When I asked the originator why he chose that moniker, he said wittily and absurdly, because you look nothing like him. Working men are often extremely funny in caustic, biting, insulting manner, as discussed in Rule 9. They are always harassing each other, partly for amusement, partly to score points in the eternal dominance battle between them, but also partly to see what the other guy will do if he is subjected to social stress. It's part of the process of character evaluation as well as camaraderie. When it works well, when everybody gets and gives as good as they get and can give and take it, it's a big part of what allows men who work for a living to tolerate or even enjoy laying pipe and working on oil rigs and lumberjacking and working in restaurant kitchens and all the other hot, dirty, physically demanding and dangerous work that is still done almost totally by men. Bro. This reminds me so much of law enforcement and healthcare and a million other professions where gallows humor is the name of the game. Mm-hmm. And I literally saw a quote the other day, and this is me learning from memes, but it said, dark humor is a supportive structure, and I have never seen anything more true.
Ooh, that's a great way to put it.
Like, you just have to. I mean, me and my coworkers at my old job used to walk by each other's offices and flip each other off.
Yeah, I love that.
And just be dicks. Like, make fun of each other, shit on each other. I mean, again, it's not with malintent, but he kind of talks about in the subheading of you're going to be put under stress in certain jobs. And so if you can't handle some of the joking around stress, are you going to be able to handle some of the other stress?
Yes. And also just lighten the mood and be real about it. I feel like everyone who feels like they need to be on it and nice and agreeable again ends up becoming their downfall because you end up not having a backbone and you can't deal with stress and you start getting sad and butthurt and you just like go in a hole.
We're wrapping up. We're almost done. I think this is my last quote. It is. It's going to be a little lengthy, but you guys know that he wraps everything up at the end with a bow in such a kind way that I just have to read it, okay? Men toughen up by pushing themselves and by pushing each other. When I was a teenager, the boys were much more likely to get into car accidents than girls, as they still are. This was because they were out spinning donuts at night in icy parking lots. They were drag racing and driving their cars over the roadless hills extending from the nearby river up to the level lands hundreds of feet higher. They were more likely to fight physically and to skip class and to tell the teachers off and to quit school because they were tired of raising their hands for permission to go to the bathroom when they were big and strong enough to work on oil rigs. They were more likely to race their motorbikes on frozen lakes in the winter. Like the skateboarders and crane climbers and free runners, they were doing dangerous things trying to make themselves useful. When this process goes too far, boys and men drift into antisocial behavior, which is far more prevalent in males than females. That does not mean manifestation of daring and courage is criminal. When the boys were spinning donuts, they were also testing the limits of their cars, their ability as drivers, and their capacity for control in and out of control situation. When they told off the teachers, they were pushing against authority to see if there was any real authority there, the kind that could be relied on in principle in a crisis. When they quit school, they went to work as roughnecks when it was 40 bloody degrees below zero. It wasn't weakness that propelled so many out of the classroom, where a better future arguably waited. It was their strength. If they're healthy, women don't want boys. They want men. They want someone to contend with, someone to grapple with. If they're tough, they want someone tougher. If they're smart, they want someone smarter. They desire someone who brings to the table something they can't already provide. This often makes it hard for tough, smart, attractive women to find mates. There just aren't that many men around who can outclass them enough to be considered desirable, who are higher, as one research publication put it, in income, education, self-confidence, intelligence, dominance, and social position. The spirit that interferes when boys are trying to become men is, therefore, no more friend to woman than it is to man. It will object just as vociferously and self-righteously, "You can't do it, it's too dangerous," when little girls try to stand on their own 2 feet. It negates consciousness. It's anti-human, desirous of failure, jealous, resentful, and destructive. No one truly on the side of humanity would ally him or herself with such a thing. No one aiming at moving up would allow him or herself to be possessed by such a thing. And if you think tough men are dangerous, wait until you see what weak men are capable of.
That last part I liked the most. Yes,
I don't
crazy.
even know if there's anything else to say about
I
it.
think that was the way to wrap it up.
I think it was too. He just does. I don't know. I liked it. I liked the way that he said, you've got to encourage it and it's good for everybody. It's good for men. It's good for women. You don't want women to be stifled. You want people to be able to stand up and be courageous and speak their minds. And if we shit on everybody every time they stick their neck out, then they're not going to stick their necks out. And then we're not going to get better as a race of humans.
Yep. We're just going to sit there and wallow in our own self-misery and just... Yeah. Ooh, okay. She remembered. What's the next chapter?
The last chapter, and I finally remembered. Okay. Rule 12. Pet a cat when you encounter one on the street. Can't wait to see where this takes us.
I have no expectations. Oh, there's actually a picture.
There's pictures with everyone. I should have been showing them to you guys.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's cute.
Yeah, I know. That might be one of my faves.
I don't know if you have a tip of the week, but I would say if you hadn't read it in school, read 1984 because it's very good.
Great tip. That's a great tip.
I'm almost done.
All right, my dog's trying to get in my lap, my 65-pound dog. Okay, I love you very much, and until next week, I love you. Bye.
Good job today.
We did so good. Okay, I'm about to pee in my pantalones.
I'm going to say bye to Kenny real quick.
Okay.